EP Magazine's annual healthcare issue contains a wide selection of articles for parents, caretakers, and professionals who care for children and youth with special healthcare needs, including families who have multiple children with disabilities. Further topics include early intervention, oral care, medical bills, and physical fitness, concerns faced by most families, but especially challenging to those with special needs. Read it today at www.epmagazine.com.
Oscar Mike Radio is a proud podcast partner of REITs Across America Radio, heard every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. They're also big supporters of the nonprofit I Got Your Six, Two Lives at Once. And with every REIT you sponsor through Oscar Mike Radio, $5 goes back to this great organization dedicated to making a difference in the lives of veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders battling PTSD. Two Lives at Once pairs these brave men and women together with dogs rescued from kill shelters. In this way, two lives are saved at the same time by saving each other. Donate now. Go to REITsAcrossAmerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio to help. That's REITsAcrossAmerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio.
Suicide is preventable, and each of us has a role to play in suicide prevention.
Suicide is complex. There is no single cause.
And it's not always a mental health issue. It could be loss of a job or home, financial or relationship issues, pain, or leaving the military.
Suicide does not discriminate. It affects all ages, races, and genders, veterans or not.
If you know a veteran who is struggling, connect with them. Let them know help is available.
There is quick and easy access to services in times of crisis.
Dial 988, then press 1. Talking about it is okay.
Don't keep it inside. Don't be ashamed. Don't wait. Reach out.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. My name is Travis. I'm a Marine Corps veteran and your host. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hubazoo Network. You can find out more on hubazoo.com. I want to thank my sponsors, Joyce Asack of Asack Real Estate, Army National Guard veteran Mark Holmes of Reapers Detailing and Power Washing. I want to thank my supporters, all veteran-owned businesses, Bone Frog Warrior, Cason Shaving Company, Black Cat Designs, and Savage American Woodwork. It's 2024. We're off to a fast start. And a couple weeks ago, well, this is 2023 now, but you get the idea. I got hit up by Michah Haughey with Veteran Powered Films, and he showed me some cool stuff that veterans are creating. And I have one of those veterans on board now. So without any further ado, Joe, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Thank you so much, Travis. My name is Joe Klaunberg. I was in the Marine Corps from 2010 to 14. I was a chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear defense specialist. It sounds fancy, but it's really not that fancy. It's just, just mixing chemicals in a Gatorade bottle and throwing it at tires all day, pretty much. But, I got out of the Marine Corps and I started a personal training company. And through that, I had a client who essentially, pushed me into the acting industry. He was like, man, you just have charisma and all that stuff. And I thought he was yanking my chain to get out of doing more push-ups. But, next thing I know, I was doing some really cool stuff. And flash forward a couple of years, maybe six years, I met Julia, who is the co-founder of Veteran Powered Films, and she introduced me to Michah, and we became fast friends. What they're doing at VPF is really something near and dear to my heart, which we'll definitely talk about. And I met Julia on the set of Christopher Nolan's Tenet. So that was a really interesting, they were doing a bunch of military stuff. That was a really, really interesting gig. And then COVID happened, and, everything kind of shut down, and we came back, and Julia hit me up and was like, hey, oh my gosh, you have such like a weird way of moving, is what she was trying to say. Right. She said that I had a unique take on some of the things that she was seeing, and she wanted me to play the creature in this like just post-apocalyptic type of world that is Homestead. And I got a chance to work with a good friend of mine, Hiram Murray, always phenomenal to work with. He's such a talented actor. He has done stuff with, A-listers, B-listers, all down the line. And from there, really, I think my involvement in that has kind of kickstarted something for me. And I really, just having firsthand look at, what they're doing with Veteran Powered Films, I think it's something that I can see myself really just exponentially growing with it. You know what I mean? And having something to do with the veteran community and the film industry, that's something that I never thought I'd have the chance to do.
No, that's interesting. I mean, first of all, you go from, well, I think NBC, I think mop gear, charcoal, and, trying to get that freaking darn mask on fast enough, and then all the other kind of fun stuff. And then you go into starting your own company. So you had to rebuild yourself after that. And then you got into acting in Tenet. Now, what a film to, get dunked into the deep end, because I've watched that film and I'm still trying to figure out what was actually going on. If you know, let me know later. But I mean, it was truly a masterpiece. I mean, Christopher Nolan is on a different level. What I'm trying to get around, what I'm trying to get around to say is you're kind of like a Marine Corps success story, where you go in and there's nothing about NBC work that I think relates to film, unless you're making a film about, chemical, biological contamination, but still it's two different disciplines, and you've done it. So let's start there. What was your secret sauce to being able to make that transition from that MOS, that time in your life, to really understanding and embracing acting?
Oh my gosh. That's something that, I found it was, there are a couple of different faces to both of those industries, right? As a corporal in the Marine Corps, I developed a lot of, and this isn't MOS specific, but I developed a lot of the skills that I kind of transitioned to the film industry. Even before I was a corporal, I got my black belt in Marine Corps martial arts. It as McMap. And so that translated really nicely to not only, the military tactical stuff we did at Tenet, but even before that, I choreographed a fight that I did in my first student film, and, it translates really well to the stunt world. Right. And when, my agent always says, you're not a stunt man, you're an actor who does his own stunts, so that translated really nicely. And, I think as far as it pertains to the CBRN world, there's not a whole lot, it's you're kind of grasping at straws when you're looking at films going, what can I, unless you're an Oppenheimer, right? Like, so I kind of took the mindset, right? So that mindset directly does translate, where it's, if you run into a roadblock, this is the traditional Marine mindset, but also when you're working with, prevention and hazardous materials and all this, and identification of things, right? You have to think like a detective sometimes, and I got a really great opportunity to hone those skills. I was with a basically the nation's, they always call it the nation's premier CBR in defense, right? It's called Indian Head, or it's called CBRF in Indian Head, Maryland. Chemical Biological Incident Response Force, which is a specialized unit that basically we were doing training missions where I felt like Batman sometimes, where I'm like, trying to figure out, is this something that's dangerous? Is this not something? Luckily we never had to do it in real time, but the critical thinking aspect of it, and this isn't necessarily how I view Hollywood in general until you're in it, right? Or film in general, right? And they're constantly, making deductions. They're constantly searching for, what is my character doing? How is the environment impacting this? What do I need to look for in the script or translation? What do I need to look for when I, go into this mount town and I'm looking for IEDs or something of that nature? So it's the deductive skills, I think, were a really, really good transition point or like a jumping point for me, a catalyst for it. Yeah, it was crazy. I almost, so I had a job lined up with Lockheed Martin, and something happened with OPM. I don't know what it was, but my security clearance was put on hold for almost a year. And during that time, it was interesting to me where essentially, I booked a bunch of small roles, right? Like I was doing some commercials and did some background work. And then I had an opportunity, maybe like a year. It was like a year after I had started, and my clearance process was just waiting, the hurry up and wait game, as we all do. And then it was random because they were filming Wonder Woman 1984 in Alexandria, Virginia, and that's where I was living at the time. So I got out of Indian Head and I was still in the DC area. And so they're filming Wonder Woman, and next thing I know, I'm getting a call going, "Hey, can you be on set at 6 a.m.?" And I was like, "Is this real? Like, is this real life?" Like, yeah, heck yeah, I could do that. So I had a small speaker. I was a day player, but that really jump started everything. A month or so later, I packed up my bags, moved out to LA, and it was it's a really cool concept for me to think that the film industry, there's so many parallels. There's so many parallels to the military, and I think that's what really helps drive me forward with it. A lot of actors and a lot of in front of the camera talent, they don't really understand that it's exactly the same. When you're on set and you're doing something for 12, 13, 14 hours, you're like trudging through mud because, you signed up to do your own stunts. And, you look to your left and your right, and it's the same feeling of, I'm not going to let this person down,
So you're at this point where you've gotten some acting experience, you've gotten some acting cred, you got your roles. When I say roles, like your film roles, you can show people that your work, you've got a portfolio. How does Michah and veteran powered films figure into, where you are now?
Oh my gosh. On a personal level, they play a huge role, because, they're people that not only are they genuinely good people, but they're people that will take the shirt off their back. And Mike is not a veteran, but part of me wants to give him an honorable mention, honorary Marine for the day, but it's those type of people that I want to be around all the time. You know what I mean? That you get the support from them, that not just hype, it's support where if you're wrong, they call you out and they sit you down, "Hey, this was a mistake," or something like that. Hasn't really happened with us, but that's the type of person that is involved with veteran powered films, and professionally speaking, man, they are unbelievably just talented, first of all. Talented and professional. Everything that I've done with them has been, Micah blows me away sometimes. He'll email me or text me and, hey, do you want to do this? And I'm thinking to myself, like, the first time, I was thinking to myself, like, oh, cool, I'm gonna go hang out and it's gonna be like a little get together. No, it was a full-fledged film festival, professional. Everything that I've seen from them has been something you expect from a big studio. And these guys they're young, they're fresh, but they're hungry. And guys and girls, right? Like, I don't want to be that guy, but
Well, how because you watch movies and you figure out there's a lot of production companies, film companies,
yeah.
independent people doing stuff, the big players. Is there ever a saturation point where there's just almost too much being put out, or is there room for someone like Veteran Powered Films and Micah to tell a story in a way that captures an audience?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think that on one line of thinking, when you get an oversaturated environment, you get kind of regurgitated films and the stuff that you're like, I've seen this a million times, it's just repackaged. But that's not the case. I think that's coming more from the big studios than anyone else, and that's not a knock on them. That's just good marketing, and they can do it well. But when it comes to storytelling, man, I got to tell you, there is so much room. And matter of fact, I think we're undersaturated.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think with all the templates that we have, with the capabilities that we have, we've got hundreds of streaming services. We've got YouTube. Where I imagine this will be on YouTube and iHeartRadio, Spotify. So we have so many outlets, and people are a little bit afraid, I think, to take that leap. And you'll find, I think, as Veteran Powered Films grows, that's going to be the reason, is because nobody involved with this, it's not quite an organization yet, it's an initiative, right? So anyone involved in this initiative is going to they're going to do what it takes, right? There's no fear. And I've seen Micah and Julia undertake some scary thing. Like, you're talking like thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff, and they're just no fear. They know what they're doing. They're well prepared. And so I think the saturation of the market is almost it's almost a myth. It's like a smokescreen, because people make it up because it's intimidating. So that's the excuse that they use. But you are right to a degree. There is somewhat of, I wouldn't call it a saturation. I would call it, there's an overabundance of people that kind of try to do the same thing. So hopefully we see people taking a chance, take that leap. In which case, I think that, definitely something like Veteran Powered Films, or something that is more on the risk-taking side, not necessarily in the way that we produce the stories, but we take a chance on something. I think that hopefully we'll see a lot more of that, especially now that the strike's over.
The strike really threw a monkey wrench in a lot of people's plans. I mean, because independent people have less than the bigger studios. So what's it like going through a strike? Because I'm seeing where some people cross the picket line, some people had to make money to feed their families, and some people didn't. But it was a very contentious time. What was it like going through that?
Great question, Travis. The range of the spectrum of emotions, you're angry about it, you're in denial about it, you finally accept it. I don't remember all the steps, but for me, I think this is something, again, that the Marine Corps mentality really helped me out, because I knew the strike was coming. We, at the end of last year, by the way, last year I booked more roles than any of my previous years, and I was really on a roll, and I was looking forward to this year. And then the strike came, but we could tell that the strike was going to come early on in the year. So it was one of those times where you see the storm coming and you either prepare yourself for the storm or you ignore it and you're blindsided. At least in my case, right? So essentially what I did was I got up as much money as I could, first of all, and I decided that it was time. This might be a good plug, right? So I decided that it was time. So I had a story in mind that was about a close friend of mine. Well, it was about my response to what happened to a close friend of mine. And so in 2017, July 10th, 2017, you might have heard about this. There was a military KC-130 that crashed over Mississippi. And so a good friend of mine, his name is Talon Leach, he was on that plane. So that had a big impact on me. I mean, it's one thing where, you lose a part of, I don't really call them friends, right? Like you lose a part of your family to combat. It's something that you can kind of digest, right? It's awful. It's one of the worst feelings that I could possibly think of. But then you lose a part of your family to a malfunction or something that you can trace back and go, this person didn't do their job right. So, 16 people died. That's to me, that's gut wrenching. That's something that really takes not just the wind out of your sails, but it takes a lot to figure out and process. So something that I've been doing for a long time is when I need to process things, I write. So on top of, by the way, shout out mental health. You go talk to a therapist. I've been seeing my therapist for 2 years. She helps dramatically. But I'll kind of swing it back around. So the strike hit, and I decided it was time, right? So I wrote this the script to a short film called Exhale, and I got my cinematographer, I got my sound guy, and then we hired our actors, and we made it a thing. So I live in Los Angeles, right? So I drove all the way back to Virginia because that's where my buddy lives, and he was my cinematographer. And so I drove back to Virginia, and we did this entire shoot in 5 days. We built an airplane, so it was hectic to say the least. But we got it done. And it's in post right now. I'm doing some edits. I got to find the right editor. It might be me, but it might not. So, and it looks great in my opinion. So far, it looks great. We got to do coloring and all that. A little bit of sound adjustment, and so that's what I did during the strike. It was it was a moment for me. I called my agent and I said, hey, is there anything that you need me in LA for? Is there anything that you need me to do, or is there anything that you think would benefit me? And she was like, oh, there's a strike going on, so there's no reason for you not to go do this. And she was like, matter of fact, I think it's the best thing because you're going to have that nice completed package, and it's well within the scope of I paid for myself. I didn't have any studios involved. It was well within the scope of the strike, and so it was a green light from there. And man, I hauled ass across the country, and it was brutal, but it's worth it.
One of the reasons I understand the strike was really in people's minds in the acting world is the aspect of AI taking jobs and changing the creative process. And I'm curious what you think about that, because, for some of the stuff that I do, AI has saved me a lot of time and money, and I've gotten the outcome that I needed. But I can certainly understand that I've done some voice work, and I'm like, I can certainly understand, like in voice acting, where you have built up a portfolio and a career and reputation, to have a program take that away from you. I can certainly understand that, but should we fear AI, embrace it, or just find a way to coexist with it?
Wow, that's I think that's the question of the century, Travis. By the way, you definitely have the voice for voiceover. I can listen to you read the dictionary, brother. But I would say, man, my thoughts on it are kind of twofold.
Okay.
One is that even too much water will kill you. You know what I mean?
What Navy corpsman ever told you that, John? No Navy corpsman ever told me. I was told a gallon of water, David. Okay, too much water will kill you, but that's true. That's true.
Well, that's the thing. Too much water is a lot of water. It's a lot of water, right?
Yeah.
Too much AI, too much whiskey.
Oh yeah, it's definitely going to kill you.
It's different, right? It's not the same. It's not the same like feeling or anything. But and it's the same thing with AI. I think everything has its role, but you get too much of a good thing, it becomes a bad thing. So yeah, I mean, when they're talking about poor background actors, right? Like the background actors are the ones that I think are liable to lose the most, because what they were talking about doing before the negotiations ended was replicating, and they do this too, but with not necessarily with AI, where they go in and they scan and they build those 300 armies, stuff like that. But I do think that once they get that scan, if they're able to use AI to make you move around and do things that you didn't actually do, we're in waters where if you're not paid every time your likeness comes on the screen, that's a problem. And then if you're doing things because it's a slippery slope, right? Like we've got these deep fakes of whoever, name them, deep fakes of people doing crazy stuff, and so I think there's a tightrope to walk, because AI is certainly groundbreaking, it's cutting edge. And I've used some AI for, I don't know, to make a Twitter post or something like that. And it's really useful when it's not impeding my ability to be creative, but at the same time, as a writer, as a filmmaker in general, I think that because if you look at some of the stuff that, let's say you have AI write you an essay, well, yeah, it could be very technically sound, but then you have AI write you a movie or a novel or a poem, and it just is lacking something, in my opinion. The human aspect that we get when, if I pour my soul out onto a page, it's going to feel different when you're reading it, as opposed to if AI wrote something very similar. So I think that's kind of where we are with it. I don't know enough about the negotiations to tell you, this was a big problem or this was not a problem. But from what I understand, the negotiating committee was talking about every time they use someone's likeness, they get paid. You can't do anything illegal with their likeness. And then I'm pretty sure I read the negotiations or the contract. I didn't read the whole thing, but it's available for us now. And from what I understand, I think SAG has done a pretty good job of limiting the scope of detrimental power that AI will have. It's from what I've seen.
So just to go technical here for a second, because I'm learning DaVinci Resolve for my video editing and stuff that I've done.
Very nice.
Well, I mean, it's a tall mountain to climb, but I'm one step at a time. I'm getting it. I've started like 4 years ago, and I'm getting comfortable with the program. I get asked a lot about video editing and filming, and what's your view when someone says, well, that's great, but I could do it on my iPhone in half the time with no problem? Because it's starting to really annoy me, Joe. It's starting to really annoy me, because you start going down the rabbit hole of learning Adobe or learning DaVinci Resolve, and you realize there's the actor, right? There's a director, but there's a whole, let's just be honest here, army of people making sure the technical side of it works right to make what we see seem like it is. That can't be understated, right? Because I like to think I've worked hard to get as good as I've gotten. it takes time and effort that people don't appreciate, it seems like.
Oh my gosh, I 100% agree with you. It's crazy to me because I think it's the instant gratification, not
Yeah.
just of America, right? But of the world now. Like technology is like, hey, you want to know the answer to some ancient question? Well, I got Google. I don't have to research and look through textbooks to find, the Revolutionary War, right? Like I could just go watch a 30-second, introduction to it and kind of get an understanding. And that to me is kind of the same thing, because holy cow, man, when I use Premiere Pro,
Okay.
and DaVinci Premiere Pro, I've used DaVinci before, which there are things about DaVinci that I like better, and there are things about Premiere Pro that I like better. I mean, I have the whole Creative Cloud portfolio on my. I use Photoshop and stuff, so I was like, you know what, I'm not going to pay for. There's a free DaVinci, but it's not. You don't want that one. You want the paid one. So, I was like, you know what, Premiere Pro it is, because I'm paying $20 subscription. But it's crazy that the amount of effort and time, so just cutting together one scene, like let's say it's a 2-minute scene, cutting together one scene like that, you're talking about easily 3 or 4 days of work right there, and a lot of these, like the TikTok kids, where I cut it together on my phone, and you see it on TikTok, it looks fine, but if we take that niche away, or if we take that lens and expand it to everything else, you can't do a lot of this stuff on your phone. Maybe you can trim it and add a filter, but it drives me crazy. Just like you're saying, it drives me crazy. I'm like, well, why don't you just use Canva? Why don't you just use I like Canva, by the way.
Well, I do and I don't for different reasons. Canva went down one day when I really needed it.
Oh man.
And that really, irritated me. But no, I get it. And it's just, I don't think people see or appreciate the behind the scenes stuff enough. And when you get a taste of what that takes, having the tripod, having the light, having all that stuff set up, sound engineers to me do not get the credit they deserve, because it is crazy what some of these people can do with the tools they have. So it's just a real different side of the business that no one sees, and it is a business. Speaking of businesses, so you're in veteran powered films. Micah's got you on board, and it's a really cool thing. And he shows me the trailer for Homestead.
Oh yeah.
And I am like, because I didn't know what to expect, right? He's like, look, I've been working on this. I don't want to show you, but I want you to have my people on. I'm like, well, okay, cool. Let's do that. I'm tracking, full on. When's the trailer? Well, I don't have it. Just wait. And then he shows me the trailer.
Well worth it.
Oh my God, Joe. I'm like, because I didn't know what to expect. I'm thinking, well, maybe it's like a college art project, or maybe they're just truly starting out and it's going to be kind of homespun. I got all kinds of questions. First of all, where did this concept come from? Because it seems like it's kind of like zombified.
Oh, yeah.
It's not really zombified. It's something else. Like there's something else out there. So I'm hooked. So set the stage for Homestead for me, please.
Okay. Some of the stuff I can't really give away, so I'm just going to be as dramatic.
Just tell me what you can.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, so Homestead, the reality of Homestead is that it is essentially, we think it's a monster film. It is, right? But it's really about a man protecting his family. And so when in the trailer, when we're introduced, you get this sense that there's really no way that this guy can not come into contact with whatever the problem is, right? You get this eerie sense of there's something going on because, they've isolated themselves out in the mountains. I'm not sure how they want to spin it, because I haven't read the full script. They're keeping that really close to their chest. I'll read the full script when we start production, and I'd love to reprise my role as the creature. But so essentially for me, without giving away too much, it's a story about how is a guy going to stick to his morals, and how is he going to protect his family, and how's he going to protect the newly introduced young lady, and how are they going to navigate that relationship, right? And then all of a sudden we're throwing in this chaos that is this mystery monster, the creature, if you will, right? So for me, I get a almost like a 28 Days Later vibe,
Yeah. I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah. And go ahead. Sorry.
It's not really Dawn of the Dead or The Walking Dead, but it's something else too. And first of all, I'm like, if I'm going to get away from people, in the mountains is a pretty good place to be. So Absolutely. It was kind of interesting how conflict and the setup got there, but who got the tension dialed in? I was going to ask you, one of the things I really noticed was you all really ratcheted up the tension in a short amount of time in the trailer. It was very interesting how that was done. Was that on purpose or just a byproduct of the story itself?
Well, I think a little of both.
Okay.
So I think, the story does serve that, because any good film, right, has a meter of tension, right? So like there are points in the story in any good story where the stakes are high. And with this trailer, especially in a place like Homestead, right? Like you see that building on the mountain and it's like a rundown cabin, it was a beautiful place in reality, but on film, you look at it and you go, that looks scary. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So I think just having that right there immediately kind of goes in your brain, you go, something is going on. What am I about to see here? And then obviously, Roger Christensen, the director, did a great job. Linda and Roger doubling up on the direction. It looked really good to just, from Video Village to watch it. And then going onto the screen, you're like, damn, that translated really nicely.
Right.
And then I really want to shout someone out. The sound.
Go right ahead.
The sound. So Jace, he was the guy that did the sound editing for us. And I can't emphasize enough what you said earlier. People underestimate sound, for everything that anytime I'm doing a film, like I've produced the short film that I did over the summer. And the first thing on my mind after I brought my cinematographer on, I was like, we need great sound, So I think Homestead, that was really the tension in Homestead was really emphasized by the sound, so if you watch the trailer and you pay attention to the sound, you pay attention to like there's like leaves crackling and stuff like that sometimes, and that wasn't, obviously that wasn't there in real time, but they add stuff like that in to increase or decrease the tension. You get some piano going at some point. My God, the difference sound makes. Right.
Well,
so go ahead.
Just from what I know like if I do an interview, if like we were in person right now,
yeah,
and I shot this on my Sony camera, and the sound I get from that versus when I use my Zoom to get the sound, and then I clean it up, it is different. And I'm like, man, there's so much that goes into this, trying to make sure your EQ is all set, trying to make sure that we're balanced and normalized, all that good stuff. And then I listen to, because I do, when I hear a trailer like that, the sound's the first thing I go for. And I'm like, everything was crisp, everything was clear. And the music, the ambient background music really ratcheted up the tension. That was just awesome. I mean, like I told Micah, that was sick. It was sick. I was really pumped about that because it's hard to do. It's hard to do on when you have a big budget, much less when you're, independent or small shop. So I'm pumped.
Well, Pumped is an understatement for me, Travis.
Okay.
I will say this. So I have a video. Well, I have a bunch of videos and pictures of I went to, and this is how I knew that this was going to be really exciting for me from the get-go. So I went to they had me go to a special effects artist, and they had me do a plaster mold of my arm. So in the trailer, it's tough to kind of catch, but you can see the arm reaching out and grabbing. I forget the character's name, but so you reach out, you see him reach out and grab him, and he's spraying him in the face. And so I think that was, I lost track of why I was telling you this. I just got really excited by it.
The sound pumped, and you have special effects, and
Oh yeah, sound, special effects. And by the way, that arm, the prosthetic arm, smelled terrible. It was but it was really cool because the special effects artist had the plaster mold of my arm, and now the plaster mold of my arm is in my house on display.
very nice.
So that was kind of a cool memento to kind of keep with me. And I think that it's the details like that, right? Like they had everything mapped out, and in the trailer, you don't actually see all of the detail that went into it, right? Like there's details that, just off camera, there has to be this thing right here, turn this way. Otherwise, like the continuity is wrong or something like that, right? And there's so much detail that goes into it. If you want to make a quality product, you're living in the world altogether, so you have to understand what goes in front of the camera, but also what happens behind the camera. And I hope that more people start taking notice, and they're like, oh, the sound is crazy, because that's a huge difference. When you get rid of all the background noise and then the white noise, and you get that like fresh, crisp, somebody says something and it's like whispering in your ear, amazing difference. And then, you have the colorization, like Da Vinci is much better at colorizing than most of the other editing, right?
I'm dipping my toe into that, Joe, and I'm like, man, I'm having to go through the book and trial and error, but I'm like, you can film something, like we can be filmed right now, and with a couple of clicks, we're black and white, and then we look completely different, depending upon what you want to do. And you can make, my head shine more and your face, light up like a Christmas tree. It's great, right? And that's just the technical side of it. So I guess, does it ever get old though? And there's a lot of waiting around and waiting to make your story final, so to speak. Does it ever get old or cumbersome, going through all the steps to finally see that finished product?
Oh man. Yes and no.
Okay.
I would say for Homestead, for me, no. There was a lot of there were a lot of hands turning the right tools. You know what I mean? And so sometimes you'll get in a position where, and this is just my experience from my own stuff, not VPF, because, again, if you're short staffed, or if you don't have somebody with the talent to do, and I don't say talent, but like the understanding of how to do stuff, right? Like editing takes years to master. Like I know guys and girls have been editing for 5-6 years, and they're learning new stuff every day, And so for me, when I'm editing something, it does become a bit cumbersome. It's one of those things where if I have to edit a scene, 3-4 days in a row, and then I make one mistake, or like I like something a little bit differently, now I got to go back and figure out if it works with the same way all the way through. A lot of people are going to be like, he's talking in circles. He's not making sense, but you know what I'm talking about.
Right. So you get a shot, and then you get another angle to bring it in too. And it's like, well, geez, I got to change that one thing. Oh, all that stuff before and after is now garbage.
Yeah.
Let's do it again, recompile, and see how it looks. It can really drive you a little nuts, Joe. It can really like send you in a different dark place. And then, but then you get it done, and it's like, oh yes, is totally worth it. So I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
How can people connect with veteran powered films and Homestead and what you're doing and stay in touch? Because now I can't wait for the film to get started.
Definitely, yeah. I would say all of our social media handles are Veteran Powered Films. So Instagram, Facebook, YouTube is the biggest one, right?
Okay.
So we want to send people to YouTube because that's where the trailer is, right? It's a little bit too big for, let's say, Instagram. You can't really put the whole thing on Instagram,
Right.
and if you do, it's kind of small because you're on your phone, like kind of got to look like it. But I would say I would send people to Veteran Powered Films YouTube.
Yeah, I have the YouTube link here. I'll have it in the Oscar Mike Radio Show post, and it has the tank. Can't miss it, folks. It has the tank with the VPE. It's awesome. All right, and get some other stuff there too. We might get into that later. As an actor, working on your craft, and one of the things that I've appreciated about people like David Nevin, others, Marlon Brando, is they've always worked on their craft their entire career. So, what's next for you to work on in your craft and developing yourself as an actor?
Well, there's always you're constantly working. I do that kind of every day, in some capacity, right? Like if especially during the strike's a great example. During the strike, a lot of people took that time to go, I'm going to go on vacation, or I'm going to, let things slide. I'm going to forget about it for a while, or I don't know if it's more often or not, but, maybe they were feeling a little down. And so they were like, what's the point? For me, I had a couple of weeks where I was like, what's the point? Or, let's relax a little bit. And then, I got this motivation. I woke up one day, and this is kind of how motivation works for me. I wake up one day and I'm like, it's better to be prepared and not have to use it, or not get an opportunity to use it, than not be prepared and have all the opportunities in the world. So, what I was
kind of like having that extra battery, that extra memory card that you got to carry around.
Oh yeah,
better to have it and not need it.
100%.
All right.
So a lot of times, I would do just scenes that I had auditioned for before. What I got in the habit of kind of watching them, old ones, and I would watch them on my laptop or put them on my TV or something, and I'd go, I can do that better, and then I go tape it, right? And it's hard to not have someone to bounce it off of. So if you have friends or something like that, if you're an actor, friends are your best asset, because it's a give and take, especially if your friends are actors themselves. Hey man, I'm gonna run this scene. Can you read for me?
Yeah.
Even if it's through Zoom, especially during the strike, people were in other states, sometimes people are on vacation or something. So you call them up, hey man, you want to Zoom, or just I'll put you on speakerphone, you read these lines for me. And boom, then you've got a scene partner and you can work on the craft. Something else that I was doing, I did a lot of writing, which to me increases my understanding, not just of the actor, but of the story and of the character itself. I think if you're an actor and you're not writing, you might be putting yourself behind. Because writing is, not only is it cathartic, but it's educational when you make a mistake. So you make a mistake and you go, why does that look weird? Like, or why does that not make sense in the story? And you read it and you go into the whole save the cat notion. I don't know if you've read that book.
I have not.
It's a screenwriter's Bible, basically.
Save the cat?
Save the cat, yes.
I'm writing that down.
It's a great read, even if you don't write, which I'm sure you do. But for those that are listening that don't write, it's still a good read to understand. If you want to get to understand film, or even just novels, like if you're a reader in general, it gives you a good understanding of story structure, why the protagonist and why the antagonists are doing what they're doing, and at what stage should they be in a certain position, and so you get a script in an audition as an actor. And what I do is I look at what page it is, right? Like, so I happen to have one here in my office, right? So if I look at this and I see, oh, it's page 5, right? And then the context is like, it's a TV show. So at page 5, we're, quarter of the way through the episode. So now my character has, if they're just introducing the character, he's at the beginning of his arc. But if it's, someone who's leading the show or something like that, their arc is already in play. So I think writing has a big upper hand for actors. But there's nothing like getting into a character, really just enveloping yourself in the world and then putting it on tape, especially if it's not for anyone but yourself.
Fantastic. So how can people, I have the link, I'll have a link to the Oscar Mike Radio show post, but I want to know to Veteran Powered Films, but how can people connect with your career and follow you, Joe, and, support what you're doing?
Oh, same way. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I don't really post on Twitter, but I'm on Twitter,
All right.
And then I do have a small YouTube channel. I haven't really put anything on it in a couple of years, but hopefully, coming up, I can start putting more things. I actually might put the Homestead trailer on there as well. And then once it's ready, my short film Exhale is going to be doing a festival run, hopefully for next year. So just got to get that edited and the sound properly done. My sound guy's phenomenal. He's got 2 Grammys, so I'm confident in him. I told you I didn't go small on the sound, but so yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Joe Klaunberg, Facebook, same thing at Joe Klaunberg, YouTube, everything's kind of across the board.
I'll have the links to Veteran Powered Films and Joe Klaunberg in this show post on the Oscar Mike Radio website, so you can stay in touch and see what Joe's up to. Well,
thank you so much.
No problem, man. I mean, we blasted through this time. Time flies when you're having fun, as always. And I would say to Michah and yourself, I just can't wait for the full featured film to come out, and I can't wait to check it out. The film is called Homestead. The trailer is out now on YouTube. I'm talking with Joe Klaunberg, U.S. Marine Corps veteran and part of Veteran Powered Films. Just amazing, Joe, to see what you all can do when veterans are given a place to, really show, what you all bring to the creative process.
Oh, that means a lot to me, Travis. Thank you so much, man.
Awesome. So as we say in Oscar Mike, we are, mission in flight. Joe is Oscar Mike. We're on the move. Joe, thanks again, and I cannot wait to see the finished product.
Thank you, brother. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Remember, on it teaches our mission. We care about it, we do it every day. But I think there are things that just hit you and give you a reason to go on. The theme for our 2024 for Reads Across America is Live with Purpose. It just seemed to fit in with the vows of the REAP, the 10 attributes that we feel represent our United States military. I thought, what a great opportunity to put those 2 things together and show our kids through how we act some of the things that can make their lives better, their communities better, and by doing that, the country better. For me, Live with Purpose, I think, it's a mindset. Set some guidelines and then go out and purposefully make life different, make a change. It's an opportunity to set an example.
Thank you for listening and watching Oscar Mike Radio, where our active duty service members and veterans are in action and the mission is in flight. Oscar Mike Radio is an oversized load Co-Sinista One production. If you are a veteran or know a veteran who needs help, please dial 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line.